everybody, I'm Danny Grossman, and thanks for joining us for ILTV's weekly program, One-on-One with Alan Dershowitz. We want to give you, our viewers, the chance to have your questions answered by Professor Dershowitz, one of America's greatest legal minds. He's a leading expert on criminal and constitutional law, civil liberties, and the Arab-Israeli conflict. Hi, Professor Dershowitz. Thanks for joining us.
How are you?
Well, we have a special treat, especially for you. Joining us today is Avi Yisacharov, who is an award-winning Israeli journalist, known for his focus on Palestinian affairs, and as an analyst for the Times of Israel, Walla News, and Haaretz. He holds degrees and has taught at Ben-Gurion University and Tel Aviv University, and has authored 2 books and is the proud father of a 12-year-old daughter. Now, most recently, Avi has achieved worldwide acclaim as the creator and co-author of Fauda, perhaps the hottest Israeli show ever to reach American and international TV. So here's a quick reminder.
אני רוצה להזכיר במי מדובר. יש לאבו אחמד דם על הידיים של 116 ישראלים שהתפוצצו בפיגועים שהוא עצמו הוציא. אין מחבל שרצח יותר ממנו. אין. נשים, ילדים, זקנים, חיילים. הבן זונה רוצח. בן מוות. בן מוות.
أنا بقولك إذا بتقوليش وين أبو أحمد راح تتراجع تكون شهيد قبل ما أخلص عليك.
This is actually the courtesy of Yes TV. This is the program which is also an award-winning show in Israel. It's won 11 Ophir Awards, which is the Israel's Emmy. So Avi, welcome to the show, and it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Danny, and thank you, and hi, Alan. How are you?
I'm doing great. I remember the last time we met in that wonderful hummus restaurant in Yaffo, and we had a good talk with my grandson. And I watch your show. I wait every day for it to come back for the next season. It's an amazing show because it humanizes everybody. It humanizes the Palestinians. I remember in the restaurant, there were many, many Israeli Arabs, and they treated you like a hero because although in the end, without giving away anything, in the end, the Israelis usually prevail. The humanization of the Palestinians and the humanization of the Israelis, they're not perfect. They're not. They don't get it right every time. Is just wonderful. Not only television, but wonderfully projects the complexity of the situation in Israel and in the Palestinian Authority.
So Avi, can you tell us about the show, how you became involved? And especially for those who don't know, what does Fauda mean?
Fauda means chaos in Arabic, of course. And it's a kind of very known word in Arabic on the Palestinian territories because it described a situation in which Palestinians were living in, especially in the years of 2000 to 2006, the years of the Second Intifada, where you could find many militants, people with guns, terrorists on the streets of the West Bank and Gaza, but you couldn't find the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority wasn't really functioning, wasn't really operating, and instead of that, what you've got were militias, gangs, gangsters, people with guns that did whatever they felt like. And that word, Fauda, became like a cultural issue, meaning they wanted to describe, the Palestinians wanted to describe a situation, a specific situation. That was the word for the big balagan, as we call in Hebrew, for the situation on the ground. Now, I bumped into this project almost by mistake. I mean, I wasn't a TV creator. I'm a journalist, like you've mentioned before. But around 2010, I met by accident my partner in crime, Lior Raz, who's the head character, of course. And we started to discuss the option of creating a TV show. We knew each other since I was 16, and I had long, curly hair. He too, by the way. And we had an idea of, talking about this phenomenon of the undercover units that are operating part of the IDF in the West Bank. It used to operate also in Gaza Strip. and to talk not only about them, but also about the Palestinian side and what's going on among the Palestinians, Hamas, Fatah, Palestinian Authority, etc., in the West Bank. And we managed to create a show that describes a hunt, a chase of an undercover unit team after the biggest terrorist of Hamas, which is called Abu Ahmad, in the first season.
Now, Alan, you were here for the opening of the U.S. Embassy, like you mentioned a bit ago, with your grandson, and you met with the Prime Minister as well as leading heads of state. But easily the most enjoyable and perhaps the most important session you had was the 2-hour session over hummus, which you had with Avi in Jaffa. And you discussed legal and moral issues, which I think make Fauda so compelling. So could Fauda actually be a textbook for one of your courses at Harvard?
Oh, without a doubt. In fact, if I were teaching courses on human rights and terrorism and prevention of terrorism and what tactics are permissible and impermissible, I would use several episodes from Fauda to present students with impossible dilemmas that they find it so difficult to resolve, because there's no perfect black and white, right and wrong answer. It's always striking a balance, and it's always dealing with imperfect human beings who get it wrong. And that was really the question I wanted to ask Avi, and that is, do you get criticized by some Israelis for showing bungling cops? I mean, all of your heroes, all of the figures in the unit are imperfect. And often, of course, to make it great drama on television, they don't get their quarry early on in the show. They miss them. They have missed opportunities. They allow human failings to interfere. Are you criticized for not presenting the Israelis as, unflawed, perfect characters, and presenting the Palestinians sometimes with a, if not a positive attitude, at least the viewer understands the motives for what they're doing?
Professor Dershowitz, the questions that you asked me, it's very interesting for the simple reason that the answer is very complicated. Meaning, I get some criticism here in Israel, but also in the U.S. For example, I speak pretty often in the U.S. about Fauda, and over there I pretty often hear the question that says, how come that the Israeli Jewish characters are so imperfect, are so problematic, they're violent, and how come that they treat the Palestinians in that way? I mean, I feel that the criticism in the US, among Jewish organizations especially, is coming from the right side. While I'm here in Israel, the criticism that I hear, especially in the media, is coming from the left side, meaning how come that you don't show the occupation, that you don't show phenomena like checkpoints, like the wall or the defense, of course. And I have to say two things for both sides. First of all, no one is perfect. I mean, we know the people that were there on the ground. Leo served in a unit like that. I had my military service. We know that people are imperfect. They cannot be, not soldiers, not warriors, etc. Each and every one of them have its own problems, its own issues. Some of them are violent, some of them are nice, etc., etc. On the other side of the criticism, I have to say, listen, if you come to Fauda and say, how come that you don't talk about checkpoints? And I saw a few articles saying that, and I saw a British newspaper writing about that, and I saw an Israeli newspaper writing about that. If you would watch Fauda, you would see that in each and every episode, especially in the first season, there's a drone taking you from the Palestinian side to the Israeli side and the opposite way around. And it goes beyond the wall every time. So we're showing the wall again and again and again. We're showing the checkpoints, and we're showing what we call occupation. But you don't need to scream occupation, occupation, occupation when you do a TV show that deals with the occupation.
Of course, we're going to show the occupation. You'd have to show both sides of the occupation. You'd have to show not only Hebron, you'd also have to show Ramallah. And Ramallah does not look like occupied territory when you go there. It looks like downtown Jerusalem with beautiful cafes and restaurants and fancy cars and electronic shops and no Israeli soldiers present. I had one question, one criticism. I watched one episode with a group of friends, and I'm not going to give away the episode, but in the episode, one of the leading Israeli characters murders in cold blood a Palestinian who's been captured and who has his hands behind his back, and he just shoots him in the head. And the people watching it said, as far as they know, that just doesn't happen. Kind of executions of captured terrorists. Now, we know what happened on the bus on the road years and years and years ago, but when you have a scene like that, does that in your mind reflect reality, or do you take kind of literary license in order to show that there are indeed some evil people who do evil things even among the Israelis?
There's something that we need to understand about this show. It's a show that deals with a real conflict, but it's not a reality show. It's not describes reality as it is 100%, meaning that there are some cases, stories, episodes, scenes that we took the, as you call it, the literal liberty to just go wild, go crazy. Why? Because you need to create a better drama. Because you need to create a kind of a show that would be fascinating for the audience and would capture the audience and won't let them leave the screen even for just 1 second. And for that, sometimes you take the character and you let them do some very radical acts in order then again to show that Fauda is something different, that Fauda is the unexpected. It's the kingdom of the unexpected.
I want to ask you something about television. So I can't leave the screen for a second. You've had an impact on my marriage and my private life, because as soon as Fauda goes on for a season, I park myself in front of the television and I watch all the episodes, one right after the other, and then I bemoan the fact that I have to wait a whole year for the next series. Do you like the fact that we don't have to wait a week between episodes? You know, I grew up watching serials on television, watching serials in the movie, and you have a whole week to absorb the episode, and you sit and you wait with bated breath for the next episode. But now we just press a button, and every single episode, you've worked on it for months and months and months and months, and in a couple hours, it's all over. I've seen everything. Do you favor that approach to binge watching, or do you think it would be better to have it staggered over an 8 or 10 week period?
Look, I cannot judge. You know, it's for each and every one of us, it's his personal point of view. I think, you know, that I'm a kind of a romantic, nostalgic guy that still likes the old-fashioned way of watching episode by an episode, waiting a few days to swallow, to understand, to get the feeling, to get into the slow rhythm.
You're wrong. You're wrong when you say it's a matter of choice. The episodes are so good that we have no choice. You've taken away our choice. We have to watch them one after the other. It's completely your fault. You've denied us freedom of choice. If you made the episodes more boring at the end, maybe we could wait a week, but we can't wait a week. You know, the world stops when Fauda comes on. You know, if President Trump got impeached when Fauda came on, I wouldn't even be able to be on television talking about it. The world would just go on until I finished Fauda. It's all your fault.
So, Alan, if I understand you right, you want me during the 3rd season to finish every episode in a more mellow way, in a nicer way, like kind of a nice romantic comedy.
Let me stop there for a second, because you are talking about something extremely seriously before. You're talking about the human thing. So I'd like to react beyond the moral and legal issues. I'd like to have you look at it from the perspective of an Israeli fighter in that unit, okay, who makes these decisions not like one of Alan's students from the quiet Ivy League classroom, but from the mindset of an Israeli soldier. And I'd like you to talk about the psychological effects on the people who serve in these units and are faced with these dilemmas like the people in Fauda.
Look, I think it's endless. And I think that just like Alan mentioned before, if you were there on the ground, I think you would understand much better what it is. What's the dilemmas? What's the conflicts? I mean, what do you need to do? You know, just today I saw an interview with someone, a soldier, that shot a terrorist after he was already dying. El-Or Azaria, of course, the very famous case. And it reminds me of the first episode of the first season of Fauda, where we're showing that they shot one of the bad guys, a Hamas terrorist, just at the end of the episode, and then one of them is coming very close to him and shoot him again. Why? Because that was in order to dismantle the threat. This is what we called it back then at the days of the IDF, dismantle the threat. So you need to shoot him again because he's armed, and he might be using his gun again in order to shoot one of your friends or yourself. But that specific example, it's the perfect dilemma. What do you need to do? How do you know if it's a threat or not? How do you know if it's dangerous or not? You have 1 second to decide, because maybe in the second second, he will be shooting one of your friends. And I think that what we try to show is that in these kinds of places and units, you don't have time to think. You don't have time to think about the dilemma, the moral dilemma, the philosophical one. You just go and shoot. And these kinds of conflicts and dilemmas, people in the West Bank, I mean soldiers in the West Bank, in Yehuda and Shomron, are meeting every day on a daily basis. And that's a very non-convenient place. It's a very non-comfortable place for them. But hey, this is reality in Israel.
But you know, you do have, clearly, when I watch it, there is a political perspective to the show. I mean, this is a show that has the effect, I think, if you watch it, of saying the occupation, the military occupation, the presence of undercover forces within the Palestinian Authority, though a necessary evil, is not a healthy thing for Israel. It's not a healthy thing for the world. In the end, it's a kind of anti-occupation show, although the point is made only subtly. Would you agree with that?
Not exactly. What we're saying is that these are the counter effects, or at the end, the results of something that is called terrorism. We use, I mean, Israel is using undercover units or teams in the West Bank. It used to use them also in Gaza Strip. Not because it's fun. Not because they like the idea of people shooting each other. They use them in order to prevent attacks, in order to prevent terrorist attacks, in order to prevent violence and more violence. And at the end, as someone who followed the operations of those undercover units very closely as a journalist, I have to tell you that my impression, at least, is that their aim is not just to go and kill. Their aim is, at the end of the day, to decrease collateral damage. And I'll give you an example. If you have an indication, an intelligence indication, that there's a terrorist hiding in a hospital, in Hebron, in Nablus, etc., you can bomb the hospital. And by that, killing dozens. Killing the terrorists, but killing dozens. Instead of that, what the State of Israel is deciding to do, it's sending an elite unit into the hospital, putting the life of their own soldiers in danger, just in order to prevent the collateral damage, just in order to prevent killing of innocent lives. So is there a price for that? Yes, there is a price for that. But then again, this is reality, this is the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and this is the price that we're all paying for this ongoing fight or war between the two people.
So Alan, I want to stop because we have one last thing here, and I want to get to it. So, of course, I'd like to ask you what's going to be in season 3. I'm not going to ask that. Is there anything really quickly you can talk about, other projects you're going to do, Avi?
We have a few projects on pipe, meaning we have 2 new TV shows for Netflix, except for the Fauda 3rd season that is going to deal with nice romantic comedy issues, like Alan wants. Yeah. We're going to have 2 new TV shows. One of them is dealing with kind of the U.S. and Israel relations, but from a very personal point of view, and a kind of a potential thriller TV show. The other one is dealing with a true story of the life and the death of Imad Murnia, one of the most known terrorists that were living in this planet.
So, Alan, before closing, you're going to have to wait and be very disciplined on this to when the next series comes out. But let's hear from one of Fauda's favorite binge watchers who visited your set, Avi, and he was looking for a role that he could play, but he spent some time with the cast. Let's roll it.
Very exciting for me to come here and see you guys. And what I've never lost after all these years of being in show business is when I'm a fan of a show, when I see the people in person, I'm like, oh my God, it's them. What I love about Fauda is that the characters from every single viewpoint are represented. It's addictive, and it doesn't matter what's happening in your life. My wife was giving birth when I was watching one episode, and I'm like, I'm busy, and you take care of that on your own.
Okay, so finally, we want to celebrate few things here today, Alan. And one of the things is we have the 100th show, not of Fauda, but the 100th show of the One-on-One with Alan Dershowitz. Okay. And besides being the 100th show, we have something even more interesting. It's also, well, I'll just leave this go here. It's also your 80th birthday. So here we go. So Alan, Mazal Tov.
Thank you. You missed my 80th birthday in Hebrew. I was born on the 8th day of Elul, and my bar mitzvah sedra was Shoftim, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tirdof. So I'm already 80 in Hebrew, and I'm 3 days away from being 80 in English. So I'm older in Hebrew than I am in English, and I think I'm wiser in Hebrew than I am in English. So it's very fitting that I should be older under the Israeli or Jewish calendar than I am under the American calendar.
Yeah, but of course, like I like to tell people, Alan, you have the energy of 8 to 10-year-olds. So, so that's all the time that we have for today. So thank you for your time, Professor Dershowitz, and of course, I'd like to thank you, Avi, for your time.
Thank you, Alan.
Now, if you'd like to ask Professor Dershowitz a question, go to iltv.tv or our Facebook page and submit them. And we'll see you again here next week.